We are going to call the Novi Board of Education regular meeting to order. It is Thursday, September 8th. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I can get a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda,
So moved. Support.
recommended by Mr. Mena and supported by Mr. Cook. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 7-0. Tonight, we're going to start off our agenda with reports to the board. We have a report from regarding the Novi Meadows construction update. Mr. Micah.
Thank you. We have a ton of work going on right next door, and so we're really excited to kind of share and celebrate a little bit of the progress that's been made on the new Novi Meadows site. So I'm going to invite Justin from McCarthy Smith to share a brief presentation with you this evening.
Good evening. We just, this past summer, we've had a lot of work going on. Just wanted to give the board an update on what's been happening the last several months. This is a presentation that we presented to the teachers as they did their back to school afternoon and getting prepared for Meadows classes this school year. We're starting off here. We've got a rendering of the front face of the new Meadows. This is the structure that everybody currently sees going up just off Taft Road. As of today, we're just about complete with the steel structure. I'd say by the end of the day tomorrow, the front face of the entire building will be on and on display from Taft Road. The areas in green are currently the areas under construction. The blue and purple is going to be our next phase, what we call the renovation phase, an extensive renovation phase. This will be where we extend the gym area, redo the center section of the building, incorporating the new cafeteria and choir area, as well as do a full gut of the southern half of the existing building for the new arts wing. So just kind of giving you guys a display here from Google Images the year 2020. This is how the building had looked as of May 2022. You can see that the previous classroom wings have been taken off the building, and we are in this photo currently coming down to the base grade for the new addition. As we move into June 22, you can see the new foundation starting to take shape on the northern half of the building. Underground conduits and piping are going in, as well as the new stair tower is starting to come up out of the ground. As we move into July, the same effects happening on the southern half of the site. Column footings are all in. The exterior foundations throughout the parameter of the building you can see are going in, as well as the erection of the new stair tower. And at this point, the grand staircase in the center is complete with their foundations. And as we get into August now, again, we did a side-by-side of the year 2020 to August 2022. You can see that we've got steel up through more than half of the building, which is not even a current photo at this moment because things are starting to move so fast. We now have steel going all the way across through the southern half of the building. So the new structure is taking shape entirely. So just a brief update through just a different vantage point of the job site, going through the various months, starting from January of 22 through August of 22. You can see the difference that a summer has made for us. We've gone from just scraping the surface clean and starting with a clean slate out there, just a lot of dirt, to having a steel structure standing out in front of us. This is a quick video we took, drone footage, just kind of circling the building. And again, this was taken a few days ago, so we've had even more steel going up since a few days ago when this footage was taken. Was we're rounding around, you can see the backside of the grand staircase. Steel decking's on the north side, which that slab was placed this afternoon. And we'll be moving down to doing the lower floor slab on the northern half of the building beginning of next week. Moving on, beam signing took place beginning of last week. We have here John and Lisa, the Meadows principals, standing behind the beam that was erected earlier this afternoon. On the right-hand side, we also have the Meadows staff that had a chance to sign the beam for the raising. We also have plans on doing a secondary beam raising on the second phase of the school, which will incorporate some of the students and getting that signed and doing it with the exposed beam. So beam sign today, we've highlighted in red where the beam is currently located on the site. And this is just some footage of today's drone, or some drone footage of today's beam raising.
It was really fast beam raising there, wasn't it?
So again, this is another shot from today's beam placing, as well as everybody who attended this afternoon. We had members from the board, as well as superintendents and superintendents out here on site, as well as some of the design team, Plant Moran, accompanied by McCarthy and Smith. Again, to date, just going through a few, I won't run through all of it, but steel erected to date, we've had over 217 tons, approximately the equal weight of a GE locomotive. Kind of keeping theme with the fact that Novi is the number 6 stop on the railway. Concrete pour to date was 1,055 cubic yards, 106 concrete trucks. Reinforcement steel to date, 28 tons. Masonry block, 9,000 CMU blocks laid to date. This will be picking back up next week, starting in our center section of the building and working our way to the south. And then conduit installed to date is about 1.3 miles. So, does anybody have any questions? All
I think we're all in awe.
All right, thank you.
It seems like the train theme, like giving that information to the students and letting them figure out how many boxcars it would fill would be a good story problem.
We actually did have one teacher approach us after the presentation and ask for the slide to use in her math class.
That's fantastic.
So,
Yeah, yeah, fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, next on our agenda, we have comments from the audience. Individuals who wish to address the board must identify themselves, their address, and any organization they may represent. The board and individual board members will not directly respond to comments or questions that arise during the public comment portion of the meeting. Individuals who wish to address the board shall direct their comments to the entire board and not to individual board members, the superintendent, or other school district employees or members of the audience. Behavior that is intemperate, abusive, defamatory, or discourteous, or that otherwise interferes with the orderly conduct and timely completion of the board meeting is strictly prohibited. So, looks like if anybody doesn't know, we have green cards in the back. You can give them to Sheila, and she'll bring them up to Mr. Cook. Mr. Cook.
Jason Mitchell?
Good evening, Board. Jason Mishner, Novi resident. Keeping with the theme of the presentation, I was actually curious to hear if Plant Moran or Team Cresco or members of the Capital Project Committee could comment on any trade-offs or decisions the district made in order to maximize the bond dollars in otherwise, investing in roofing or flooring or other materials that would last longer than maybe the cheapest bid, or if there was any investments in any of the HVAC, the glass, the insulation, any of the structure that will make the buildings more efficient, again, minimizing the district's costs going forward. Just curious to hear how the sausage was made, how you guys came to some of those decisions. I did notice in the bidding contract for the high school revision phase 2, it looked like by and large most of the bids were just by cheapest bidder, and I was wondering if there was any content or anything about some of the bids that you chose that would be worth highlighting to the general public. And I also noticed there was a few bids that didn't have any competitive bid, and I was curious if that was the nature of that particular business, or if it's just a tough environment, or what the reasons were for a no contest bid for some of the aspects of the revision phase. So that was really all I was interested in, just to learn a little bit more about how our district's expanding and if we're doing it in an efficient way. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cook?
Maureen Crawford.
Hello, I'm Maureen Crawford, a Novi resident. I have 2 little kiddos in the district, and I am here representing the Novi Mental Health Alliance. And there is I know last week Jason mentioned, just to let people know in the community, the first annual Novi Parent Camp that is happening at the high school in October. So it's going to be October 8th. There is a speaker coming to speak. Mr. Manka will be doing the opening remarks, which will be very exciting, but it's for parents. It's going to be the first one. The Novi Mental Health Alliance, I believe, started 4 years ago. It started with parents, really surrounding mental health and supporting students and parents around that. So we're super excited about the event. PJ Brady is the speaker. I actually work with him, and he lives in Belgium, so he's coming in for the event and will be doing the keynote. So he will be talking about raising kids to be brave, smart, and kind. And so that will be the overarching beginning part of it. But then I think the exciting part too is that there will be breakout sessions after. And so there will be all different types of things for parents to choose from, maybe something more specific to them that they would rather go to, that they can choose to go to. So it will be at the high school, 8:30 to 12:30, Saturday, October 8th. There will be free childcare, and I will leave flyers at the desk. I know, at least for my student, Village Oaks student, I know the principal sent that out. So that might be coming through emails from some of the principals, but we're excited to see people there. So, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Any other comments from the audience? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to the superintendent's report. Mr. Michael.
Well, I am really happy to report that it was one of the best weeks of school that I can remember, and it's not even over yet, so that's really great. There's a lot of energy around the district. I was able to get into every building on the first day, and just lots of smiling faces. I think we're really benefiting from kind of an excitement that people have about coming back together and being together again in as normal way as we can, right? And I think that lots of smiling faces. I really appreciate the board members who came out to visit schools and greet students as they came in. I believe almost every school had somebody there to greet kids as they were coming in addition to the building principal. And obviously, I'd like to give a huge nod to our staff across the district. They planned very diligently for many months to make the start of the school year the best year ever. And I just can't say enough positives about what I've seen in classrooms. We encouraged our staff to spend the first few weeks really investing in relationships. And so when we talk about, mental health and we talk about a lot of these things, I think the initial thought for a lot of parents is, okay, day one, I want you to bring home all the calculus material and start working. But the common knowledge and the research actually supports you're going to go a lot faster if you have a lot of routines and a lot of relationships that are built within your classroom, and you're building a community and a sense of belonging for everybody that's there. And so I was really excited to kind of give the staff not only that permission to do that, a lot of them were doing that already, but just really kind of together looking at how we're building community in every classroom. And that's something that is a huge priority for us. So it was a great start to the year. I expect that to be the same tomorrow. again. And so thank you all for your support in that. Talking a little bit about transportation, I'd like to say Cindy and Karen in the transportation department have been inundated, and I really want to just lift them up and say that they have been real troopers through this. They've worked a lot of hours. They were people that didn't get to take Labor Day off. They were spending many, many hours handling phone calls and things like that. There are some glitches that we had in our sign-up process, and so as we have things that go great, I'm going to share those, and as we have things that aren't so great, I'll share those too. But I think a few years ago when we started having people sign up for transportation, it was an effort to try and make sure we could adequately staff all of our buses. And through some of the glitches that we have since cleaned up, we had some people that were not given, proper, transportation that they wanted. So we're working through that. It'll be much better next year. And actually, we're getting better every day. And, we're working through the parents that need it. I will say, we had no bus blackouts this year to start, and that's a huge win. So we're trying to, build on that momentum, but obviously there's still a lot of concern that some people have. We do have walk zones, which is common around the state. It's about a mile for elementary and about a mile and a half for secondary students. In some of our subdivisions that, can create a little bit of a problem. So we're looking at unique alternatives. We're trying to think outside the box. But our goal was, block and tackle. Let's get 5 days a week for the kids that are in the transportation zones, and then we'll try and work on improving that as we go. And so I will say that the 5 day a week transportation has reduced parent traffic in the parking lot significantly. And so there's a lot of really great things to come in that area. But I think our transportation leaders and drivers are doing their very best, and I can't thank them enough for their hard work at the start of the year. It's been very stressful. But it's great to see them moving efficiently. I had an opportunity to attend the Novi Police and Fire Benefit Fundraiser. It was a golf outing this past week on Friday, and it was really just a great event to meet a lot of people. So, we're really working on some of our community partnerships with not only our municipal partners, but also with businesses, small businesses, some of our support organizations as well. I also would just mention that we're really fortunate to have Detective Julie Warren in our district. She is at the middle school and does such a fantastic job. I've seen her interacting with kids already, even in the short time that I've been here, and she really has a tremendous presence with the kids, and they trust her, and she's doing a great job. And happy to announce that we have a new high school liaison officer, Officer Sarah Molick, and she started this week as well. So if you see her, welcome her and the kids. I would like to also, I know Mr. Smith's timing me, so I'm trying to get through my report here. So I wanted to let you know that we started a book study with our administrative team, and we actually have books for each of you, so I'm going to pass these around. The two books are The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and Radical Candor. Passing these out, make sure we have enough for everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, and so I'd love for you to, have a copy so that you are open to participate and join the conversation. But the first book is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. We're going through that with our leadership team to really kind of talk about how do we function and work effectively as a unit. There's got to be a lot of synergy with the number of people that we have, and so this book is an old book. I've done it a couple times, but I think it really helps really get to the heart of how a team is working effectively, efficiently. Communication is key, and so really excited about that. And then Radical Candor is kind of an interesting read. Kim Scott is a former executive at Apple, and she kind of gets to, if you remember my interview process, I talked a little bit about the warm demander philosophy. This is kind of that operationalized, and so we're excited to get into that with our administrators as well, to be able to have difficult conversations, but also do it with grace and empathy, and so I hope that you'll enjoy those too, but just want to make sure you have those because we are doing that with the administrative team. Want to update the board that we took several board members, as well as a lot of our construction partners and also our administrative staff from the district, to tour several activity centers around the area. We started out in actually we started out at St. Joe's at the Schoolcraft Center. It's called the Elite Sports Complex. We took a look at that facility and just what they offer and the type of surfaces that they have in there and what types of activities they can host. We also went down to Ypsilanti Lincoln, where they have an activity center there in their district. Got a chance to see also, to do a comparison, if you will. We also went to Brighton area schools as well as the Legacy Center, which is also in Brighton. And the purpose of this was to start to get an idea of what type of scope we're looking at and what the needs are for the district. And so that was a great kind of starting point, because we're going to need to get into the planning phases for that part at the Capital Projects Committee. So just to update the board on that. Also had a tremendous opportunity to meet with the director of the Japanese School of Detroit, which is here in our district, Moto Ihara. And I also had the real pleasure of meeting with Rumi Hayashi, who is the principal of the Japanese School of Detroit. And they've invited me in. I'm excited. I'm going to come on a Saturday and I get to just kind of be a fly on the wall and see the vast differences between what happens in their school versus what may happen in ours. But the cool thing is that we're starting to talk about collaboration, because the students that go to the Japanese School of Detroit are also our students. And so we're gonna be inviting them into some of our administrative meetings so that they can talk with principals about, hey, I'm noticing that a student might be struggling in this area on Saturday. We might be able to know that and help make it a better experience for our students that are coming from that program. So really cool things going on in that space. And so I'm excited to learn more, and I'll share that as that comes up. I also I had two more things. I would like to suggest that we have a board workshop session relatively soon. I have a few dates. I don't know if it's appropriate to kind of look at your calendars now, or if you'd like me to do that at a different time. I can send you, like a doodle poll or something like that. But I started and got to work immediately, and it was kind of like, solve this problem now. We gotta get going, get school off the ground. Really proud of the support I've received from the many people in this district. But now that I've been here for a little over a month, I'd like to sit down and just kind of establish expectations, norms, preferences that the board has in terms of how we work together and operate as a team, as a governance body. You as a governance body and me as your person to execute that. And so would love to sit down and go over that and just have a work session to that effect. I think that will be really healthy to do again in the new year once we have our new board members. But I didn't want to go too long, and probably waiting that long would not be optimal. So I'd like to do something soon, and then also plan to do that again as we have a team that's going to be developed again in the new year. So I have some dates to suggest now, or I can wait and we can do that. So I'll take your lead, Madam President. You can tell me what you want to do.
If you just want to throw the dates out here, and then people can write them down, and
Yep.
then if you send out that doodle poll tomorrow or in your Monday update, we'll get that
That
figured
sounds
out
great.
and on the calendar.
Okay, so potential dates, if you want to do something during the day, would be 9/27, 9/29, 9/30, 10/5, or 10/6. And then for evening, potential dates in the near future, we could do a 5 p.m. on 9/28. We could do 5 or 7 p.m. on 10/5. We could do 5 p.m. on 10/6. We could do 5 or 7 p.m. on 10/12. Or we could do 5 p.m. on 10/13. And then I'll send those dates in a doodle poll so that you can take a look at those. But I think that would be really healthy for us to do early on here. Any other questions on that one?
I appreciate the times for the evenings. So is it a 2-hour deal, or those are just the start times?
Those would be the start times, and I think you're probably looking at an hour and a half, so you'll have to,
And what time would we start during the day?
well, mornings are great if we did a morning, but I'll put morning and afternoon time slots in the doodle poll, so if one's better for you, then,
I'm not trying to be difficult, like 8 a.m.?
yeah,
7
8 a.m.,
Okay,
yeah, I'm not trying to get you here at 6 or anything like that.
that might be easier.
Yeah,
He'll show up.
it's fine if you want to, I'm early, but
long as
I'll throw a couple times on there
Donuts.
throughout those days, so, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Also, I'd like to just give an update on Village Oaks. And so I don't know, Sheila, if this is up and ready to go, it's ready to go, so I can switch to the screen and flip through. Okay. So, the Village Oaks playground was something that I was made aware of before I officially started. And excited to learn about that project. And so if you see, obviously, this is a rendering from the top, but the whole back area, you have a space that is going to have multiple sets of equipment there on the right. The circular pad in the middle is kind of a basketball area where they're gonna have some courts. Right behind that, where it says VO with the heart, that's gonna be a turf area with some slides that go from the elevated space down to the lower level. And then obviously you see there's swings on the left side, and then on the very bottom left, in I think it's a blue area, there's a pretty large play structure there as well. So this is an expansive and phenomenal playground. And it's exciting to say that, you know, even though there wasn't much going on, I appreciate Plant Moran, McCarthy, and everybody that got the workers out there and really cranking on this. So we're hoping to have a final playground completion by the end of this month. So over the next couple weeks, you know, I don't wanna, you know, have expectations be too high, but hopefully over the next couple weeks, our kids are gonna be on the equipment. And so just you know, a couple additional photos that, you know, you can see from an aerial perspective. They have the pad port, and you can see some of the structure going in on the top right there. And also, you've got a little bit of a different view here, but you can see they've got quite a bit of it up. They're gonna have surfaces going down as soon as the middle of next week. And, you know, it's gonna be a pretty amazing place. So I just wanna make sure you're updated on that. I know that there were a lot of, you know, questions that came to you, and I'm pleased to say that we are close, and much closer than we were, you know, even just weeks ago. So lots of exciting things going on in the district. I appreciate you humoring me with the time, and that is my report.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
So I saw the basketball hoops outside on the, I'm assuming maybe that's part of the parking lot or whatever. What have they been doing in the meantime?
The students?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Gaga ball pits installed,
okay.
which is really cool. So that was so an NEF Foundation grant, as well as I believe there are two.
PTO.
PTO, the PTO did the other one. We have upgraded, we purchased some additional toys and things that the kids can do.
Okay.
And on 2 to 3 days a week, we have bounce houses there, which are
Oh.
pretty fun, and kids are,
Okay.
talked with Ms. Dinkelman, just have to kind of try and figure out the best way to do that, because kindergartners taking their shoes off in a line, you know, the whole thing, but
Right.
it's
The
it's going really
logistics are a
well.
little tricky. They'll be very glad when the playground.
That's
is.
right, the playground is gonna be great, but they are enjoying, you know, we haven't had any catastrophic injuries or anything like that, so.
That's
you
good.
know,
That's good news.
Yeah, so it's good, so, the good news is they have a lot to do, but they'll have so much more to do in a couple weeks
yeah.
once this is, you know, up and
That's
running.
great. I just hadn't heard an update. I knew that they were planning on doing some substitution things, so
Yeah,
that's
for
good.
sure,
Great.
yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, I think we will move on to our administrative reports. And we usually start with our business report, and I think that you,
Yeah, I will-
Mr. Micah, we're gonna take care of that.
I will, I
tonight.
apologize, Mr. McIntyre was not able to be here tonight, and so I'm gonna just give a brief update from the business department. It is audit season, which means that, our partners at Plant Moran have been on site really for the past month. We've been doing pre-audit work, as well as, you know, a lot of testing and things like that have been going on, and then this week in particular, they are here every day. So they are on site and doing a lot of testing, and so as you know, the auditors, they come in and they have different things that they test for different funds. And they're really doing a sampling, that's their work, and then what will happen is that we'll have a update at a board meeting probably in the end of October, or, you know, into November, where we'll get the findings of that audit and find out, you know, where things stood and where we're at. I will say that finances are an area of constant interest of mine in the early days that I've been here in my tenure. It takes funds to do the things that we all love and enjoy, and so I know that you as a board have been aware of that and have spoken to me about that. I also have, you know, some concern, you know, relative to the, you know, where things are at, and I think we're finding that's gotta be a really big financial, priority for us is to really look at those things. I know as a board, you've done your due diligence. But through COVID, a lot of things have been happening. We had a lot of one-time funds that came in, and a lot of it happened very quickly. And so now we need to buckle down and look at our spending and make sure that, the programs that we're running are sustainable. And we're gonna do this without, any noticeable interruption to any student programs or, to our staff. But we wanna be supporting our staff and making sure that they're compensated well and making sure that the kids have everything they need to have the best education possible. We just need to always be realistic about ensuring that what we run is sustainable. And so that's just a constant thing that I have my eye on. And I think as we get into budget update season, around December, January timeframe, just know that I'm gonna be having much more information to share at that time. I've talked with Kathy quite a bit, as the treasurer, and we've had some conversations, but, this is an area that it just needs a lot of constant attention. It's not, you can't do all of the great things that we talk about if you can't fund them and make them sustainable. That's it for business.
Thank you. Dr. Carino.
Thank you. I would like to echo Mr. Minka's sentiments about our teachers preparing for the beginning of school. We are greatly, immensely thankful for their work in preparing for their classrooms and their students' return. I was able to visit many buildings throughout the week, and the energy was just palpable, the excitement that they had to have their kids back. And the kids really were thrilled to just be back in school with their friends and their teachers. So it was really wonderful to see. And just, our bus drivers have done an immense job this week of learning routes and, making sure that everything is running efficiently. And, even to new aides who are helping our kindergartners open those lunch boxes and, all those things at lunch. So I just want to really say thank you to all of them. We recently convened our safety and security meeting committee again. And so we have had some great discussion with administrators, both building and at the district level, along with the Novi Police Department. Officers Zabik and Warren were able to join us, and so we had some great discussion about plans to move forward for potential purchases for the district, things we're exploring and learning more information about to make sure that our buildings are safe for our students and our staff. And we're just excited to get the year up and running, and I thank everybody for their support as I transition to my new role. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Giarmini.
Thank you. Just to echo my colleagues, awesome first week of school. Been able to visit all the buildings, check out what's going on, check in with our new principals. The kids are incredible. Like, they're just so excited. It was really cool to see. Last week, though, I do want to point out, our Impact Week was a big success. I'm very appreciative of this opportunity for our teachers and staff to engage in professional learning. But we also engage them in some reconnection activities, refocus activities, just to get ready for the new school year. And I think it paid off, right? We had such a good week so far. I want to thank the staff for their high level of engagement. I want to thank our administrators, both at the building and district level, for their support in planning and implementing this. It is a very challenging thing to do, to plan all of this for so many people. So they've done very, very well, and I am appreciative. Our academics team is now engaged in planning our next district professional development days, coming up in October, and planning those for the rest of the year, so we're busy with that. As you may know, the Michigan Department of Ed released MSTEP scores last week. They always do that just before the school year begins, just when everybody has lots of time to look at it. Just kidding, they don't. But at the initial pass, just the preliminary look, very pleased with how our students and our staff perform. But we will dig into those more deeply, and I look forward to a future board meeting where we can present those to you. And just before this meeting, I was able to attend the Novi Community Coalition meeting. That was a great opportunity for me to learn about the work that that organization does, and reaffirm our partnership with them, and really looking forward to continuing that. So that's my report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to board communication. Do any board members have anything that they would like to share?
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Smith?
Well, first of all, not in any particular order, I want to echo the progress that I've seen at Village Oaks on the playground. I know it's been a long time coming, but I hope the parents are going to appreciate, and especially the kids are going to appreciate that they're going to have, you know, the best playground in the district and some really state-of-the-art equipment there. And compliment Kevin, your work and your team for really getting that, and Justin for getting that stuff going on. So thanks, guys, for that. I also wanted to mention something that you brought up, Ben, with the buses. I had an opportunity on Labor Day to share, you know, a couple of burgers with my son and my stepdad, who drives a bus for Walled Lake School District. And he was sharing with me, because they started before we did. I didn't know this, but I guess you get a 2-week bogey where you're allowed to have more kids than you're supposed to on the bus. But he showed up a couple of times and had 81 kids on his bus, which isn't ideal, you know, when you have 4 kids in a seat. And he was telling me that he had parents calling and yelling at him, and it's just, that's not necessary, you know. So I just would encourage all the parents to just take a deep breath and recognize that it's gonna take us a week or 2 to sort this out. And we've got, I'll also share one of the, he told me that one of their bus drivers had left Walled Lake, which is Dean Transportation, and came to Novi. And they tried to recruit her back. And she said, there's no way I'm leaving Novi. It's a family there. So, you know, our bus drivers are critical parts of our team here. And they do a fantastic job, and they put up with a lot. So I just want to ask everyone to have a little bit of patience these first couple of weeks. I want to compliment the work that NEF and Novi Community Coalition have done to support, whether it's the Gagaball pits or some of the work around mental health. I'm excited that Jason Smith and I are finally able to do some work with Friends of Novi Schools in the area of mental health. We had an opportunity to, we're going to partner with the boot camp and Sarah and some of the mental health coalition, and we got to visit Principal Adva Ringel and Claudia Welch at Orchard Hills today. They were one of the recipients. I think you guys all heard about the bikes that were distributed to Village Oaks and Orchard Hills through another corporate sponsor, Pace, here in Novi, which I think is awesome. And, you know, just going into the, you know, the Zen room, you know, that they have there in Orchard Hills, and it would be important for us to have at least a space like that in every building, if not get to a point where we could be one of the first school districts in the country, if not the state, to have a Zen house, a safe place for parents or kids to come and actually get some counseling or therapy provided at no cost, because that's part of the trouble, right, is getting the kids and or the parents the help that they need, that oftentimes people can't afford. So we've got some great corporate sponsors, we've got some great people in the district that are helping us, and I just wanted to compliment those other groups along with the work that we're doing, and I'll keep you guys in the loop. So that's it, thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Hey, just really quickly, since the boot camp is coming, is there an easy way to register for that? I'm assuming.
Ms. Crawford?
Yeah, there is on the NEF Foundational website.
On NEF's website,
Yeah,
there's one?
Yeah, and then on this flyer, there's a QR.
Okay.
I don't know how it's being passed around electronically, but I know it's on the website as well, the NEF website.
The NEF website,
Yeah.
okay, great, thank you. I just wanted clarification about that, because I wasn't able to find it. So, okay, great.
The other board
Well, I'll go
communication?
next, since I
Okay.
started talking. Loved being at the high school, greeting the students. I wish we would have done that a long time ago. It was very fun. I was greeting the students up the bus. You could tell they were very anxious, looking at their maps. You know, a lot of them with their phones, but, you know, a lot of them would look up and say, oh, hi, you know, thanks, you know, that kind of stuff. So, but you could tell there were some of them, you could tell the freshmen, they were all a little on edge. So I think it really worked well to have people there making them feel welcome. So that was really fun, and the beam raising today was super exciting. It's fun to see, you know, progress, and so excited about that building and the fact that it's going to be right there, which I think is going to be awesome. Awesome. Somebody said jewelry box. I don't know who said that. Somebody I was talking to. Crown jewel. There you go. Maybe it was you. Anyways, whatever. It's going to be really nice up there. It's not going to look like a jewelry box, but it's going to be a crown jewel, and it will. You know, obviously, we initially had plans to put it back behind Parkview, and I don't really even know. I know we talked about it at the board table and said, is there any way to make it more apparent. I mean, there's a lot of room. I don't know if it was you, Lily, or if it was me, but I know that we talked about moving it, and then they've adjusted
It was me.
the plans. Okay, it was Tom. So it was some board members, we're a board, it was the board's kind of suggestion that we relook at that, and they did, and I think it's really, like, as I see the plans for it, I just think it's gonna be amazing. So yeah, I'm glad it's been a great week of school. I know I've been walking my neighborhood with my dog as the kids are getting on the bus, and parents are all excited to have them back in school. And, yeah, it's good. Been a good week, I think, overall, so. Fantastic work on the part of everybody that's has to put so much into it. And it's, I'm sure, stressful for more than just the freshmen at the high school.
Sure.
Any other board communication? Mrs. Hood?
I thought Mrs. Murphy, when she said jewelry box, I thought she was saying jewel Reebok, as if we were getting some kind of new tennis shoes or something. I thought, what is
Sorry.
So, crown jewel, okay, got it. And I was there too today for the beam raising, and it was wonderful. Drove by Village Oaks to just peek at the playground, and it looks great. So thank you for hitting the accelerator on that and getting that done. I was at the first day of school. I was at Orchard Hills, and it amazes me every time I'm at that school, which isn't often, but it amazes me the amount of services that we have in that very compact space. So Principal Ringel had the whole day, kind of the whole morning, I should say. It was a well-oiled machine, and all 5 buses dropped the kids off close to start time. Happy faces on kids, happy faces on adults dropping them off. And there were a lot of adults or parents who put their kids on the bus and then drove to school, got out, and took pictures of their kids getting off the bus. I didn't realize that was a thing, but it was really, really neat. And then we talked a little bit about the Novi Educational Foundation. So kind of in a sign of the times that we're getting back to normal, the pancake breakfast, which the first one I attended was in 2016.
Yeah, with the flippers.
Yeah.
Right.
And they throw pancakes at
Yeah.
you and you have to catch them. Was that the first time?
That was the first time.
Okay.
That's not gonna be the case this time.
Okay,
Oh, good.
so the pancake breakfast is September 10th. It's a Saturday, from 7:30 to 11:30 in the Novi High School atrium. So
This
1 and 2.
Saturday.
Oh, it is
this
this Saturday.
2 days.
Okay, yes, and it's $10 a person. I think you can go on the NEF website and pay.
You go on their website and pay in advance, it's cheaper, and they don't throw the pancakes at you anymore.
Okay.
So.
I
it's-
dropped a bunch of pancakes. It was not a,
it-
ROI was
But it's
bad.
all you can eat, so it's
Yeah.
all, and then it was all you could catch. Now it's just all you
Still
can
ate
eat.
them if you
Yeah.
didn't catch them.
Excellent,
The lines will be faster.
yes, yeah. So that's it, thank you.
Great, thanks. Any other board communication?
Well, Willie, you've got to mention the catch of the,
Oh, yes.
century.
It's
Oh,
been
tell us
all
about
over,
it.
it's been all over.
We're all just staring. What are you talking about? Tell us. What?
Oh.
Football? The football?
Oh,
What?
yeah.
If you haven't seen it, Google Novi High School football catch. It will come up, I'm sure. It's been viewed by
Right. Well, football,
thousands, I don't know.
oh, so football started on Friday. First home football game started this past Friday, and Novi beat Heartland, and it was a great game, but there was this pretty exciting catch that really led to the game-winning drive that allowed Novi to win that game. So if you look around, I think it's been posted on social media. I think it was Bowden Fernsler, who's also a basketball player, who made a great catch and was probably worthy of ESPN.
With those hands, he could have played volleyball too.
It was really good.
That's awesome. Any other board communication? Mr. Cook?
I'm just gonna, kind of throw a word of caution out there. I know we have kind of chaotic parent pickup and drop off at the high school usually. And actually Tuesday, there was an accident on the road because of some of the congestion. But it was also pointed out that there are cars that are flying in and out of the parking lot. Today, right around pickup time, there was a black car rushing in, traveling a little bit fast at somebody told me about. But there's also kids running throughout the parking lot, so we really need to be cautious. High school kids are all over the place, middle school kids, not so much, but they're still all over the place. And hopefully elementary school kids are controlled and on the sidewalks. But please, if you're picking up or dropping off your kids, be very cautious of students walking around, getting there, students and teachers.
Thank you.
One other thing, the roundabout at 9 Mile, because that's creating some challenges with the high school, because there's only, you can't,
Go south.
From the
Yeah.
south.
so, yeah, so it's creating some challenges, but I think November, they're supposed to have it done,
Early November is what we're being told.
early November,
Yeah.
yeah. The timing of that was not ideal,
Not perfect.
no. I think it took me 20 minutes to get from Novi Road to the high school on the first day of school, which obviously is, hopefully that's not gonna be the norm, because I'm sure that will make everybody late. So, but it's a little bit of a challenge there.
Any other board communication? Okay. I had the opportunity to go to Deerfield, and actually the middle school on the first day of school is where I started, and that was fun. The students were excited to be there. They were not as excited as the kindergartners and first graders. They were a little like, oh, back to school, but it was great, and Mr. Baker does a fabulous job getting those cars in and out, and so we're grateful for all the administrators who stand out there every day. It was a warm day, but we know that soon it will not be so. And then I was able to go to Deerfield, which was fantastic, and the PTO had a welcome back. It was like a welcome back breakfast for new families to the district. So I got to sit down with them and meet some new families and hear, the great things about why they've moved here. And, obviously most of the time it's for the schools. Met some kindergarten parents, but there are some transfers in, and we sat down. Every table was asked to talk amongst themselves but make goals. So I sat down and partook in that, made some goals for myself. And that being said, Sheila, if we can get our assignments to for the buildings, that would be fantastic. Now that we're able to go back into buildings and parents are there and kids are there, and so looking forward to that. I did have a little FOMO today because I couldn't go to the steel raising. I had a patient, but Mr. Micah assures me that there will be another opportunity to have another great time over there at the New Meadows. So looking forward to that. And I laugh about the crown jewel. I think I said last week, my son said, "Why so big?" I'll tell him it's a jewelry box. Yeah, lots of great things. And thank you to Dr. Carino and Mr. Giovini and Mr. Micah. You have just really hit the ground running. You're doing fantastic things in the district. Every school that I've been at this week, you were there welcoming staff and students and just really going after it. So we really do appreciate it, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you. We'll move on to consent agenda. We have, let me see here, I just want to make sure it's all listed. We have several items on our consent agenda. We have our approval of the minutes, the regular meeting minutes from August 18th, the regular meeting minutes of August 31st, approval of bills, board report for July 2022, check register for July 2022, purchase card report for June 2022, approval of 2 field trips, which is the Women in Sports Leadership Conference field trip and the MHSAA Fall Sports Playoff, which is a rubric of the potential overnight trips that may happen depending on how well the teams do this fall. So if I can get a recommendation to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Recommended by Mrs. Murphy and supported by Mrs. Roney. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 7-0.
Can I just say, I really do like the format of having all these potentials. I mean, we always know they're coming, but we've been approving them all separately and sometimes at the last minute, right? Because they don't know. So this is a really good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it also allows them to, not have to worry about this during the season.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and Mr. Wachowski, when I talked with him about it, I just said, you know, by the time we get to the next board meeting, you know, we're already pushing up against when these conferences are gonna be, and so it's just better to be proactive in light of what's happened and, you know, make sure that that's out there as early as possible, so I appreciate that, and we'll continue to get those in advance as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's just, it's a good form, right? I mean, they know now when all those dates are gonna be, the KLAA sets them, so if they can get them to us in one fell swoop, it
For
makes a
sure.
lot more sense. And it's less work for for all our coaches,
Yep.
less paperwork for them to have it done
Absolutely.
ahead of time, so.
Mhm.
Thank you. We are going to move on to donations, which we have one opportunity to discuss and approve Petland of Novi donation resolution. Mr. Miko?
Yeah, so, at our last information session, we had just shared that, Petland has been supporting our therapy dog program for over a year. Really August of '21, we reached out, they had agreed to provide some training and support, they gave goodie bags for the dogs, they gave us merchandise to sell on the mobile market, which is a part of our Novi for All program. They provided holiday goodie bags for the therapy dogs, they donated Benebones and allowed us to sell those at the mobile market. They did a fundraiser in August, as well as donating items to our NATC program to, again, support our mobile market. And most recently, they're asking if they can support additional training of some of our dogs with $3,000. And so we're appreciative of their support of our therapy dog program. And as we have dogs that retire and we add new dogs to the mix, it's good to have support for their training, which is actually done locally here in Plymouth. So we have a really great partnership with that. So this is for your acceptance and approval tonight.
Thank you. If I can get a motion or recommendation, you can either read the whole thing or Mr. Micah just summarized, so I think if you just use that bottom portion, Novi Board of Education.
I'll be happy to do that since my name is at the bottom of the resolution. Now therefore be it resolved that the Novi Board of Education thanks Petland of Novi for their generous support, donations, and fundraising efforts for our NCSD therapy dogs, and accept with gratitude the $3,000 donation as well as the funds generated from their August fundraiser, amounts to be verified at the end of September, for additional therapy dog training and/or supplies needed to support our dogs directly.
Do we have support?
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Murphy and supported by Mrs. Roney. Do we have any further questions or discussion points on this?
I just have a question. Is it, I don't know if it's our intention or the board's intention for the school district's intention to continue to partner with Petland and, co-brand or have our logo on some of their stuff or vice versa?
Well, Mr. Micah can speak to the logo piece of it and the advertising and just general donation/fundraising logo opportunities.
Yeah, so obviously, as you know, when we are going through our policies, we're talking about, certain policies that protect the use of our logo. And we probably need to tighten up on that, so I would suggest that the logo will be a little bit more discriminating in how we grant access and authorization for that, but our logo is used somewhat, ubiquitously. If we think about our, NEF is using it, the library is using it, there's a lot of those things. So in our policies, we're gonna have to address how that gets approved and how we utilize that. So I would say that for future things with Petland, our logo will probably not be, authorized to use unless that came to the board for discussion at a further time.
Okay, that's something that I'll take up on the governance and policy.
Yep.
At least I'll start it there. My concern, which I think many of us are aware of, is not everyone in the community is a huge fan of some of the practices of the organization. I'll support accepting the gift. I think that was cool, and I think that they've done a lot of great work for us. And I wish more people would seek to understand some of the work that they've done as a partner with us, because it is meaningful. So there's maybe some work or some education that we could do to help people understand that, but I just wanted to find out if this was obligating us, because I know, I think they'd like to continue the partnership, and there is benefit to us, but I just think we need to be cognizant of that as we make our decision.
Yep.
So, that's all.
For sure.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Well, just, I do know at one point in time, no one was allowed to use it except the district, the logo. So that is something to really take a hard look at, to figure out how and when and who,
There's a few things, like, we need to tighten that up, and going into the campaign season, there's some things around
Right.
that we need to tighten up. Can I bring buttons to this or that? And so, that's on our radar. I think we're meeting early October, first week in
Yep,
October.
October 3rd.
So, yeah, we'll
Okay.
bring those up at that point, and then bring it back to the board for hopefully consideration, because obviously we can't make any decisions at a committee level.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Good to know.
All right, if we're ready for a vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We will move on to action items. The first action item is personnel report. Mr. Micah.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Carino.
I have a very short report tonight, so I have one resignation. Jennifer Camilleri, the media specialist at Orchard Hills, will be resigning.
Thank you. Welcome. If we can get a motion for recommendation, please. Mrs. Hood?
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education adopts the personnel report recommendations as presented.
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mr. Smith. Any comments or questions?
I was in Orchard Hills today, and the library was functioning, and there was somebody sitting there reading a book to kids, and the space looks great, so I know at least it's moving forward. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 7-0. Our next action item is the 2022 MASB call for delegates. Mr. Micah?
So the Michigan Association of School Boards 2022 Delegate Assembly will begin on Thursday, October 20th at 7 p.m. at the Grand Traverse Resort and Spa in Acme, Michigan. Delegates selected by boards of education across the state will decide MASB's positions on a wide variety of issues affecting education. All the delegates and alternates must be school board members currently, and only delegates and alternates named by your board may offer motions and vote on issues. However, all school board members may speak on the issues and participate in the debate. Your 2022-23 MASB dues must be paid in order for the district to participate in the assembly, which they are. So all delegates must be certified and submitted by Friday, September 23rd. A link to certify the official voting will represent our Board of Education has been sent to Mrs. Holly. And so we are going to be asking that you select, the Board of Education select an alternate as well as a person who will be the actual delegate to represent our board at the MASB 2022 Delegate Assembly.
Thank you. And we had a conversation about this at the last meeting for information discussion, and no one sent me their name that they're interested. So I think if I could just suggest, Sheila, that you, as the delegates, just put the 4 officers and the other 3 are alternates, and if someone wants to go, they will be on file and official, and they can make that determination later on.
Can I just say, I will definitely I'll be out of town.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
you
I
don't
think we really
necessarily
have
need
to
to.
officially just have something on record with them, so.
Yeah.
So if everybody's comfortable with that. And we can leave Bobby off if we want. I mean, I don't think it really matters. I think that an alternate
That's
serves
fine,
as
you
a
can put me,
delegate.
yeah, I don't mind,
Yeah.
I just wanted to, I'm announcing that now that I won't be here. So, part of that is if somebody does decide to go to the conference, or several of you decide to go, because we have a board meeting that night also, on Thursday.
Is anyone planning on going?
Clearly not.
Are greens fees included?
No, no.
So if everybody's comfortable with that, we'll just submit it as recommended, and if I can get a motion for that, that would be great.
Okay.
Mrs. Hood?
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education designates Dr. Ruskin, Mr. Cook, Mrs. Murphy, Mrs. Hood as delegates with alternates of Mrs. Roney, Mr. Mena, and Mr. Smith.
Support.
recommended by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mr. Cook. I think we don't have any more discussion on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 7-0. We'll move on to our third action item, which is the video surveillance security server refresh. Mr. Micah.
We had the information and discussion topic of this come up, and we had the opportunity to hear from our technology department. And our current district's video surveillance system was purchased in 2017. The servers met the demands of the existing systems, but they do not have the resources to meet additional camera requirements from our system expansion, particularly with the new Novi Meadows and several other places. The technology team is recommending that the Novi Community School District purchase 10 Milestone Husky servers with a storage capacity of 128 terabytes per server on a RAID 10 configuration. The servers will reside off-site at the Oakland Schools Data Center in Waterford, which is where our other servers reside. And so the recommendation is that the Novi Community School District Board of Education award the purchase in the amount of $173,967.18 to CBTS for the purchase installation of 5-year warranty for video surveillance servers, and further authorize the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Operation to expense the funds from the 2019 Capital Projects Bond Fund.
Do we have
2019. Sorry.
Mr. Smith?
Sure, I'll move that we support the recommendation that Superintendent Micah just shared with us.
Do we have support?
I'll support.
Recommended by Mr. Smith and supported by Mrs. Roney. Any specific questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Our next action item is bid package number 8, Novi High School remodel phase 2.
At our last board meeting, we had the opportunity to hear from McCarthy and Smith, as well as Kevin from Plant Moran. They're here in attendance tonight if you have questions. But on Tuesday, July 26th, and Wednesday, August 3rd, bids for the high school remodel were opened and publicly read aloud. In attendance for the bid were representatives from the district, Plant Moran Cressa, TMP Architecture, McCarthy and Smith, and other interested bidders. We considered post-bid interviews of each of the following qualified bidders for each bid division and the work listed in the recommendation letter. Based on the project team's review and the proposals of the bidders, we proposed the recommendation to Novi Community School District Board of Education for a total award in the amount of $10,262,216 to the contractors listed in the recommendation letter. And I wanted to, offer Mr. Donnelly and Mr. Bott are both here. And I don't know if you have anything further to add or if the board has any final questions before the recommendation is read.
Does anybody have any questions for either of them, or do you guys have anything to add?
No, not specific to this recommendation, but maybe we can answer Jason's questions that came up earlier. As far as the bid coverage, there was a couple categories here intentionally, actually one intentionally, one we didn't expect a lot of coverage, but we felt very confident with the coverage that we did have in a lot of the key categories. Seeing all the other districts out there right now that are bidding, there's a lot of light coverage. There's a lot of extended contractors out there right now that are not only doing work, but also looking forward on what they can take on in the coming year. So we were very pleased with the coverage that we received. As far as sustainability, I don't know if you've been around construction for the last 20, 30 years, but back in the 90s, they had a program called LEED, which is Leadership in Energy and Efficient Design, which everyone wanted to put their plaque on the building. We were a LEED accredited building. Well, that process that basically evolved in the industry created efficiency and mainstream design that moved forward. So our projects always look through that lens. Inherently, by creating additional square footage, we're going to have additional capital expense. But as far as how we're looking at mechanical equipment, electrical equipment, flooring materials, how often do you have to maintain it? There's materials out there that are maintenance free. So we're looking at all those things on all the projects through that lens. So I hope that answered your question, but I just wanted to add that to tonight's recommendation.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
One other thing to add on the bid division where we had very light attendance on the actual participation, we actually extended that multiple times.
We did.
And so it is a product of the market right now, I think, at this point. But it was good to see the participation in the other divisions.
Yeah, and as a whole, we had 74 bidders that turned out for this bid, and coverage heavy in a lot of areas. So, like you said yourself, it was a specialty contractor in two divisions there that we had light coverage on, but we kind of went into that knowing that it was because of the specialty trades.
Yeah, one of them, the $1 million, which was the equipment vendor, that's all the technological equipment that's going in. There was a lot of work that was done by R.J. Weber when he was involved programming that space with these vendors. So we had to go through the public bid process to lock in their numbers. This was open for others to bid on as well. But I feel very fortunate that we got the basis of design and basically the vendor that was at the table when we were designing the space.
And also to comment on there, we did have one division that we ended up taking the second lowest bidder. After a review process, they ended up withdrawing their bid. We found holes in their scope, and they ended up withdrawing their bid, and we ended up going with the second lowest bidder for the electrical.
Lowest qualified bid is not always lowest bidder. I mean, in most cases, especially in some of the key categories, just by way of business practice or good habit, we'll interview not only the lowest bidder, but the second bidder. So oftentimes, we'll come forward with a recommendation on the second bidder because the low bidder isn't either qualified or doesn't have the scope properly covered.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think there've also been times in the past that we've done work with the second lowest bidder, and they have a bit better knowledge of our district. And
That's true, too.
And better references sometimes, so there have been occasions when we haven't just gone with the lowest bidder per se. And I know that you guys are really diligent about the actual scope when you're describing the scope, and we've had, like you said, some that come back and they haven't met all the requirements that are written in those bids, so they are automatically kind of dismissed, right? I mean, if they don't meet the requirements of the bid, then it's not something that is.
It happens from time to time. I mean, we're looking at vendors not only through that lens, but financial lens, what their liability is moving forward, what their workload is.
Right.
I mean, they could be a great contractor, but they have 10 other clients that are taking priority. We want them to be in Novi, and Novi taking priority, so. There's a lot of due diligence that goes up front before we bring these forward, and we're here to answer any other questions that you may have.
Thank you, Kevin. If we can get a recommendation, Mr. Meno?
Yeah, I move that the board award the contracts in the amount of $10,262,216 to the contractors listed and further authorize the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Operations to expand the funds from the 2019 Capital Project Bond Fund.
Support.
Recommended by Mr. Mena and supported by Mrs. Roney. Does anybody have any further questions? Mr. Cook?
Yeah, I see we're 40% over budget on this one. And we've looked at some, there has been some cost reduction ideas looked at, but those have been rejected. Has there been any thought to any other things like reducing the square footage or the cubic foot yards of concrete that we're gonna be using back there, or, you know, not staying in the entire back of the building? What other cost-saving alternatives have we looked at?
Yeah, we mentioned at the information read a few weeks back that the team is certainly going to step back and look at what cost opportunities, savings opportunities there might be. I can't say that we have a whole list of items moving forward, but there's probably not a lot of impactful changes or deletions that can be made, but we're certainly looking at those things and what we can bring forward. Is there an opportunity to lessen the amount of concrete maybe in that plaza patio? Sure, but there's also an offset to what you're going to put there to replace it if it's landscaping. There's cost and maintenance. So we can look at all those things, but obviously if we can offset some of the overage that we've seen, we're willing to do that. We looked at the high school kind of holistically. We have two key phases left outside of the activity center, and that's phase 2, which is what we're talking about tonight, and phase 3, which is, at least when the bond was set up, kind of an ambiguous scope for interior renovation. So we're looking at what's remaining at the high school as a bottom line, and we're going to be working towards that on phase 3 to meet budget overall. So we feel pretty confident that while Phase 2 is over budget, there's available dollars remaining within the high school budget to cover the Phase 3 scope that we need to do.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Mrs. Hood?
Maybe you answered this last time. What's the time frame on this piece?
Oh, we're gonna have it turned over, for the beginning of for the beginning of the football season, in September of next year.
Okay, thank you.
So right after football season, if not a little bit sooner, maybe at some areas, and I'm not going to commit you to anything, Justin, I think we're going to be doing some work on the loading dock ahead of time, and then right when football season ends, we're going to hit the work in earnest and take that area over. Obviously, we'll have to cohabitate and work with some of the summer programs and athletics next summer, but everything should be done before 23 football season.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion points? Okay. If we're ready for a vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1. Thank you guys for your due diligence and sharing your expertise with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move on to our final action item this evening, which is the negotiation resolution. Mr. Micah.
Yeah, so part of our board policy is the district needs to approve our negotiations teams. We have 4 collective bargaining units that we negotiate with. And so these are gonna be happening at various points throughout the year. And so as you have seen the list there that's provided to you, we're asking that you support the members of the district negotiations team for all 4 of our bargaining units for the 2022-23 school year.
Thank you. If we can get a motion on the recommendation here.
Do you want me to read the whole thing?
I don't think you need to.
No? Okay.
I think the very last
Okay.
sentence here.
I will be happy to do that. Now therefore I am making a motion that now therefore be it resolved that the Novi Board of Education approve the cabinet members and bargaining unit teams as listed for the 2022-2023 school year in this resolution.
Thank you. Do we have support?
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Murphy and supported by Mrs. Hood. Does anyone have any questions on the information here? Okay. Seeing none, I think we're ready for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 7-0. We'll move on to our last agenda item, which is information and discussion. We have one item there this evening, and it's the discussion on the potential land swap. Mr. Micah.
So when I started, one of the topics that was presented to me fairly early was this concept that the district and the city have been talking about for actually almost 3.5 years now. So the conversation started prior to COVID-19, and there were kind of a lot of things that happened in the last 3 years, and so this has kind of been one of those things that was put on the back burner, and I'm hoping to help get it picked up and taken to the finish line. In a general concept, we have roughly 75 acres that are contiguous at our high school and middle school sites. And those 75 acres are very important to some of the operations that we have. So for example, our middle school tennis courts, technically, if you look at the bottom 5 courts, they're sitting on currently city property. That creates a little bit of a problem, of course. And then also at our high school, we have a real issue in terms of space. If you think about where our softball fields are at, where our kids currently play field hockey, and also our cross-country courses, those are all on city property. So our goal is to, without exchanging funds, but just really swapping land, look at the Bosco fields, which the district has owned now, and look at getting maybe more beneficial land for the district purposes by bringing into play the property at our middle school and the property at our high school so that we have full control of those sites. And so I know Kevin's done a lot of work on this, so I'll let him share. I think he has a slide to share to give a little bit of the timeline that we're looking at and maybe how we're gonna be able to get this thing across the finish line.
Thanks, Ben, for teeing that up. I don't know, Sheila, if you're able to
Where did Sheila go?
pull that up.
Well,
Or maybe Justin downstairs, can you do that?
Well, I can wing it.
There you go.
I can tell you, if the board recalls, we came in front of the board with a pretty robust presentation last fall. I think it was in October. And at that point in time, exactly as Ben had mentioned, we wanted to keep the process moving forward. Both boards, both at the district level and the city level, agreed to move forward in concept. So last October, we all agreed that let's move into a due diligence period, which with the property transactions included a lot of survey work, getting all the title commitments for the properties, working on purchase agreements. So a lot of that couldn't start until after the snow melted. So that work started in April. Pretty big sites, a lot of work and a lot of wetlands we had to survey. That was all done during the summer months, spring and summer. It all concluded here in August. And we've started to push things fast forward. Thanks, Sheila. Not a problem. Perfect. So, as I mentioned, we concluded the due diligence period here in early August, and that really put us in a position where we can start coordinating towards the next step of closing on the transaction, getting into the details of the title commitments. So now with Ben's leadership, we've been able to reassemble the teams internally with Ben, ourselves, some of the due diligence professionals, and district legal to start planning and getting coordinated internally, which we've been doing over the last few weeks. I can say that we did meet with Pete Auger with the city about a week and a half ago, kind of our first meeting with the city, and that meeting went real well. We were able to collectively develop a path forward, develop a timeline that we're all shooting for. It's definitely in the city's desire to get this closed in late September or early October, and that should fall well within our timelines. Where we're at today is we've gone through, from the legal side, all of the title work. There's items that are going to continue to be worked on behind the scenes because there's a lot of things title-wise that need to be cleaned up. No major issues, but things need to be cleaned up on the title work and part of the purchase order. Couple things we're working through that we want to do additional due diligence with. The property south, like Ben had mentioned, if we ever decide that we want to build on it, we'd like to know what the soil conditions of that site is. So we're going to do some additional boring work here over the next week and a half, have that data in hand. And there's some other easement things that legal's working through, but we have another meeting scheduled for tomorrow. Ben, myself, in-house district legal counsel with Pete Auger as well, to continue to have the conversation and work towards this closing deadline. The city typically has a 45-day Land Division Act review period. One of the things we got out of our initial conversation with Pete is they're going to probably waive that. It's in everyone's best interest that we can keep this moving forward. So I think we're on a good track. I think the dates that you see presented here are pretty good dates that the team's working towards, and we anticipate getting back in front of the board at this level for some level of approval the end of September, early October.
Thanks, Kevin. Does anybody have any specific questions? I know we talked about the land swap at length, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 months ago. And gave the approval to go forward with all this due diligence work. So we appreciate you guys picking this back up here and getting, so far along in such a short period of time in the last 3.5 weeks. So are there any specific questions that we need answered? I know that we received the document that was really just a draft document just for some general information that needs to be tweaked. Mrs. Hood?
Yeah, I had just a question about the surveys, so the wetland surveys. And I assume we can't build anything on wetlands. But it doesn't, I don't know if that's relevant.
In general,
Yeah.
good
okay.
rule of thumb, right?
So are there substantial enough wetlands in any of the land that we are getting that would cause us to pause on that, in your opinion, or?
The condition of the wetlands?
Well,
Or
the
amount of
usability of the
wetlands?
wetlands. I'm
I
sure
don't-
we can have cross-country kids go through
Right.
wetlands, but we certainly can't build a softball field in wetlands, I assume.
Absolutely, right.
So I just wondered whether, you have those surveys now and whether, in your opinion, are the wetlands substantial enough that they would alter the usability, not alter, but affect the usability of the land for our purposes?
I don't think the wetlands survey, now that we have it in hand, has really changed how we looked at the property, because I think the wetlands were pretty apparent, at least the footprints of them, so I don't think anything's really grown significantly. I can tell you that we're looking very closely at the south property, overlaying some concepts for that piece of land with the existing wetland surveys, and we don't feel that there's any conflicts there. I mean, it's pretty obvious in some of the areas that are currently being utilized for cross-country and such that we really can't build buildings there at any future date, so nothing really changed from the surveys that came to light. If that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so.
One other thing to add to that too, is that we did get environmental back and from Chemtech as well as our legal team, and there are no concerns on the environmental factors, which is an important hurdle to clear. So now we're really dealing with more, the final title work due diligence is really about any easements that are existing with utility companies, potentially maybe a homeowners association of a subdivision or things like that. But I think the heart of your original question, we are certainly inheriting more wetlands than, than we would be giving up, right? So
Right.
if you're just looking at it from that standpoint, you could it could be a head scratcher. The issue though is that the land that we are getting is existing land that we need and is contiguous with our current property. So I think it makes a lot of sense if you think about, if you were living in a subdivision and the home next door, the property next door came available, it's probably worth more to you if you wanted to expand your use and footprint than it is to somebody who's just a general buyer coming in. And I think that's kind of the situation that, as I've come to look at this, it's really beneficial to our overall operation if we have some additional space, particularly at the high school, but also at the middle school. So we'll also be getting that field that is currently a city soccer field that's right next to the parking lot at the middle school. So there's some additional opportunities as we have space for outdoor recreation and teams to be able to use those spaces. So, but to your point, yes, we are inheriting more wetlands than we're giving up, but they are very useful to our operation.
Very good, thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
Mr. Cook?
Just a couple of minor issues. The settling pond back in Ellie Mae Park, it's on these maps, cut right down the middle. We don't get the parking lot, so I assume that the city's gonna be responsible for the maintenance of that, or is that gonna go on?
I would
our-
imagine we may clean up the property line, so we're not having any shared responsibility on conditions like that. Ponds, good example. So that would be something we clean up on the final drafting of where we draw the lines.
Okay, and it's still this Dr. Matthews in here on the signing for it, so.
Yeah, no, that's
I
a
know
great,
you
that's a
said
great
that,
point,
so-
yeah, so that is actually
the other
the original purchase agreement from, several years ago. So my goal is, as we work through the due diligence period with Churn and our legal team and Plant Moran, we're going to have an updated, probably I would say in the next week and a half, purchase agreement that has all of the updates, so
Okay.
hopefully you'll get that in hand soon.
So this will probably be in the updated document, but there is that one blank in there about the city owns approximately blank acre. Do we have an idea of the acreage?
Yeah, it's, I think 75 to high 60s or 70, something like that.
I know we own 73.88. You're saying
Yeah.
that the trade is for 75 to 78?
No.
Okay.
It's a pretty close swap. It's, I believe it's pretty close.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
acreage, it's not that far off, it's just that we're obviously inheriting some of that's wetland, which we want to get a good understanding of.
Right. So the answer to the question of the amount of acreage is still a question mark?
No, there might
Okay.
be some minor tweaks based on where
Okay.
the final lines are drawn.
Okay, so that's why
Yeah.
that is blank, but, I mean, I remember we had kind of an initial ballpark.
Right.
It's just that I didn't see it in here, and so I was just curious. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, all the final as we
Okay.
finalize the property lines and that good stuff through the final negotiations. We'll provide a final acreage, calculation.
Okay.
Mrs. Roney?
The law firm's gonna go over this contract? Is that what you, or
They-
have they
they-
already gone over it?
Yeah, so actually our attorneys are the ones that drafted it, and the city has agreed to accept the city's attorney has agreed to accept our draft of it, so they're being collaborative in that space. So our attorneys really have looked through this with a fine tooth comb. In fact, we met today, and they continue to work through, as title work comes back and looking at easements and things like that, they are continuing to work on it. There've been a lot of hurdles that have already been cleared, like environmentals and some of those other things. But yes, our attorneys actually are building and constructing the final instrument that you will, have an opportunity to vote on, at an upcoming meeting.
Because there are some very unfavorable parts in here for our school district that ties our hands to certain things, which I can email you about, and you can pass on, because the way it would be, I could not support it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Roney. Mr. Mena, did you have any questions or comments?
No.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? And certainly, as you read through this a little closer, you have any concerns or questions, you can share them with Mr. Micah. He'll pass them along to the team, and it will continue to be part of the conversation before this comes back for final approval to the board.
Yep.
Okay. We will move on to adjournment. Kevin? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm rushing you. I know you're eager to sit here for, a bit longer, right? If we can get a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
recommended by Mr. Mena. Do we have support? Supported by Mrs. Hood. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 7-0.